everyone, welcome back to From Classroom to Boardroom. Today we'll be talking to Ms. Michelle Legaspi Sànchez. Michelle is the Executive Director for the Chester County Fund for Women and Girls. CCFWG empowers women through leadership and advocacy, which we think is very valuable in today's world. Thank you so much for talking with us, Michelle.
Sure, it's my pleasure.
So to start off, can you tell us a little bit about your position here at the Chester County Fund for Women and Girls?
Sure. So I am the Executive Director, which means I oversee pretty much all that we do in the community and in our work. So we have been around for 20 years, and in that time we have granted out nearly $3 million to over 70 different organizations serving women and girls in Chester County. And it all started when women were sitting around a kitchen table talking about the needs they were seeing in their lives, their daughters' lives, and in their community, and they said, we want to do something about this. We want to make sure that there's resources dedicated to addressing these needs. So fast forward 20 years later, and here we are in terms of our philanthropy, so in the money that we're granting out to different organizations, but to our programs like our Girls Advisory Board, and in our education and advocacy work, such as our Blueprint Report, which is a study that talks about how women and girls are faring here at the county level, the state, and the national level. And as I'm sure you guys know, that information, that data is really important to the nonprofits that we're funding, but also into the community to know what the issues are and what we can do to make a difference.
Wow, that's awesome. That's really interesting. So can you give some examples of where you've given money to?
Sure. So, well, our grant making at this time is really focused on increasing access to economic opportunities for women and girls, to meeting the core needs of women and girls, and promoting health and wellness. So some of the organizations that have received funding over the years that are addressing those needs are, for instance, Home of the Sparrow, which is, you guys may have heard of that one.
Yeah.
So they're a shelter, and they provide services for women who are homeless or near homelessness. They also do other services, one called WRAP, which I think is really cool, and that's for women who are involved in the justice system. And so it's making sure that they have the resources and the support to help them, acclimate back into the community, and so it's a really cool, innovative program that Home of the Sparrow does in partnership with some other organizations, as well as the probation office here in Chester County.
I feel like that's really different. That's really interesting.
Yeah, it's really cool. What we call gender responsive, meaning they're really taking a look at the needs of women, specifically women who had been incarcerated, and thinking about, what they need specifically, not looking at it like just as a general issue, but really looking at it from their perspective.
Yeah, because it really is different for women.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. Cool.
All right, so now to talk about your high school experiences. What was your high school like?
My high school was a small Catholic high school in Lebanon, Pennsylvania, which is in central PA, like right outside of Hershey. Everyone knows Hershey Park.
Yeah.
That's always been my frame of reference. So very small in a rural area, and most of the kids that I graduated with are kids that I went to kindergarten on up with. So that was really cool. Just kind of having built those friendships over the whole, course of my childhood, really. And those are probably some of my closest friends to this day.
That's really nice.
That's awesome.
It was cool. It was great experience because again, you have those long-lasting relationships. The teachers.
Yeah.
I am the youngest of 6.
Wow.
So, by the time I even got to school, and it was a junior-senior high school, so I started there in 7th grade, people knew my family and people knew my siblings, and so, which is good and bad, you know. You have to live up to their reputation, and kind of challenged maybe some of the assumptions that they had about me just based on knowing, my siblings.
Yeah, we both have older sisters.
That understand,
you get it. Yeah.
That's funny.
So it was very small and intimate, and my graduating class was, I think, about 50 kids.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm. And was this an all-girls school, or like girls and boys?
Girls and boys. Yeah, it was co-ed.
That's cool. So what classes did you take that, like, did you have a favorite class or like a passion that you felt like in high school?
I think I liked a lot of different classes. I think a few that come to mind would be like AP Government. That was a favorite. I liked the sciences, the hard sciences. So like biology. I liked physics and chem a lot as well. It kind of was definitely a mixed bag for me. But in terms of passion, I feel really fortunate that I feel that I found a passion pretty early. Sometimes when I talk to young girls, like our members of our girls advisory board, or even my daughters, I tell them that when I was, I think, a freshman, I mentioned it was a junior, senior high school, and at that time I had made student council like every year, and it was just, again, kind of my reputation and the expectation. And then I want to say, like, 9th or 10th grade, I didn't make it. And that to me was like, whoa, like, that's who I thought I was. And so I think it really, such a, difficult time at the moment, or an experience, made you realize, forced me to kind of think about just thinking more broadly and thinking about, what else can I do to feel like I'm making a difference, or what else is out there for me. And so, one day after that experience, I was watching MTV. And I don't know if The Real World is still on TV, but that was a show that was like, it was MTV, and it was like they brought 7 strangers into a house to live in like this cool apartment in a random city. And that was like the premise of the show. It was before like, those types of shows were big. So this particular season was in San Francisco, and there was a young man who was an HIV activist, and his name was Pedro Zamora, and he was HIV positive, and this was his opportunity to really increase awareness about the disease and affect change. And I was just so impressed by him and his story and his bravery. Because at the time, HIV, and still does, has a bit of a stigma. So that really helped. That really, to me, became my passion in working in this cause of HIV/AIDS. But I mentioned I was living in Central PA, where services were scarce, and even if they existed, people weren't really talking about it. So I was so eager to try to find a way to volunteer and get involved. Long story short, through a nonprofit in Lebanon, I found a camp that was actually in Downingtown. That was based, it's called Camp Dreamcatcher, and it's still around.
Oh, I've heard of that. I think they posted about that on STEM, about kids volunteering.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. So I was, like your age, I think I was going into my junior year. They were looking for counselors. It's a camp for children with HIV or whose parents they're affected by HIV in some way. And so they were looking for counselors. It's a 1 week long. So I went. I did no idea where Chester County was. No sense of didn't know anyone. I think I dragged my sister to come with me because I didn't want to be by myself. So we went as counselors, and that was just life-changing. Because again, I think it just kind of showed me the different ways people can make a difference, and exposed me to all these children, which really became my passion in terms of children and children's health, and just kind of opened my eyes in so many ways. And it's actually where I met my husband. We were co-counselors together.
That's so cool.
Yep. And just stayed friends, and lo and behold, we 14 years into marriage, 5 kids later. It's still a camp and an organization that's still very near and dear to our hearts. But for me, it was just so much part of my path and finding a passion.
Really cool.
So it's when I talk to our girls advisory board members, or just young girls, it's like, it's never too early to find the thing that's really going to set you up for the rest of your life,
Definitely.
So
that's so cool.
So then, after high school, moving into college, did you go into college with a certain major that you wanted to do, or?
So kind of based on that experience, and based on just my academic interests, and the fact that my mother is a doctor, here I was like meeting and learning about this disease, and meeting these children who had it. Like, I thought naturally, I'm going to be a doctor. I want to pursue pre-med. And so but I wasn't 100% sure. So I definitely went into college with the idea of kind of doing all the pre-med stuff, but then, social work and sociology, and kind of looking at, looking at the issues on a more macro level really still interested me as well. So I wanted to keep all those options open, and that's why I just kind of pursued it all at that point.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, so did you ever change your intended major then, when you were in college?
Yeah, I think, I'm not quite sure if I ever officially changed, but I was just really, slow to actually declare anything official,
Okay.
right? So
Mhm.
I think eventually what I ended up with is a degree in sociology with all the pre-med requirements and like a Spanish minor.
Oh, okay.
So that was, again, just to kind of keep all options open, because even through my whole course of college, I didn't know what I was going to do in the end.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until finishing school, and then I knew I didn't, since I was so undecided at that point about what I wanted to pursue as a career, I said, well, I'm going to hold off on any type of graduate school or anything because I want more experience. So my first job out after college was as a foster care social worker in Philadelphia.
Oh, okay.
So I had done, that's so kids who are in the foster care system, and so the social worker is really kind of the go-between the foster parents who are taking care of the kids now, the legal parents or their birth parents, and then, just making sure the kid's safe in that placement and that type of thing. So again, just a very much an eye-opening experience working with these kids and these families. And then I realized, I don't think medicine was for me. Like I felt, in learning about these kids, seeing their homes, I was always finding myself asking, like, I wonder why all these kids have high lead levels, or I wonder why all these kids, suffer from high rates of asthma. Looking at the medical conditions, but kind of getting, scratching beneath the surface. I didn't want to treat them. I wanted to see why these problems were happening, and wanted to be on the more upstream end of figuring that out. So it was after working that job for a couple years, I decided to pursue a graduate dual degree program at Penn for social work and public health. Nice. So I did a 3-year program to do both an MSW and an MPH, and that was a great experience because then that showed me all the professions, all the different ways that you could use those degrees.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Cool. So then after you got that master's, is that how you ended up here?
Not yet. So afterwards, and we were living in Philly at the time because I was at Penn and my husband was at Temple Law. He's an attorney, and but by then we had our first child, Lucia, and so my husband had grown up in Chester County, so we wanted to be closer to family. When you start your family, so we moved out here, and at first I was like, what? My impression of Chester County, other than camp experience, was it's very affluent. It's very much just idyllic. And so as a social worker, I'm like, what am I going to do? What nonprofits could, actually use me? So I had some hesitation in terms of, professional aspirations. Yeah. But it all worked out. I did my research on some nonprofits that were here. And I found one, which was called Maternal and Child Health Consortium of Chester County. And again, it focused on children's health. It had some programs that looked more educational or advocacy-oriented. There was no job opening, but I had reached out to the executive director and said, would you have coffee with me so I can learn about your organization and the landscape here in Chester County? And she said, sure. We clicked immediately, and she offered me project work at first, kind of like as a consultant. So I ended up working there 5-6 years, kind of in like a variety of roles. She is still my very close mentor and friend, and so I was there for 5-6 years before I came here to the fund as director of programs in 2015, and then stepped up as executive director in 2016.
That's really awesome. Yeah. So what made you realize that you wanted to be in nonprofit organizations?
I think just kind of from at a very early age, just feeling really compelled to want to help people. And so, the nonprofit sector is rich in just different types of organizations, different types of ways that you can do that. So I think, once I had that experience at camp and my first job out in being a nonprofit, it felt really like home to me. It just felt really familiar and exciting work. Work always changes. And,
you must see new things almost every day.
Exactly,
cool.
Exactly. I don't know if I'll be here forever because, I think a lot of these skills are transferable to other, other sectors, other industries. So there might come a time where I would want to change. But for now, I feel like it's a great place to grow, to contribute your strengths. Yeah. And especially being in a foundation, being on the philanthropy side and away from direct service, I feel like it suits me in a way to be able to kind of take a step back and address things from a policy level or from a more macro level, as opposed to always being the one on the front line. So again, with nonprofits, you can find one that meets or matches your skills and your interests and how you see things. So I think it's really cool.
Yeah, and you're probably able to make a change just like everywhere, more widespread.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean I think so, or I hope so.
Yeah, I think it's awesome.
Yeah, so it's
really cool.
Sometimes it's great to kind of interact, or it is great to hear firsthand those stories or interact with clients directly, because then you're reminded about why you're in it. Because sometimes if you do feel a little distant, it's hard to. It might be easier to lose your passion. To feel a little more disconnected. So you always have to find the balance. But here, being an advocate for women and girls, I feel like I'm always reminded about why we're doing what we're doing. So, because, interacting with you guys or interacting, I have 5 daughters. So, I see like kind of what's on the horizon for them. So it's always motivation to kind of to improve things for them.
Yeah. And it must be awesome for them to have a mom to look up to who's doing this work for them in their future.
I like to think that. Some days I feel like they get it.
Yeah.
Like they came in and made that poster. And,
that's awesome.
But other days I feel like, we're at square one. But that's parenthood too.
Yeah, that's true.
Definitely. So I know you said you found your passion early, but did you ever feel pressure from your parents or your teachers or anyone to like choose something to do?
Sure.
Yeah.
I mentioned that my mom's a doctor.
Yeah.
And I'm last of 6. My 5 siblings did not choose medicine.
Oh.
So, in some ways I felt like I was her last hope. And I shouldn't say it that way though, because, ultimately I tease her and she teases me. But she made her wishes known, and not just her. I think my dad, and I'm from an immigrant family, Filipino, and so there's that pressure to pursue. The health feels there's just more value and honor, I think, in that as well. But so some of that I internalized. Some of that was from my parents. I mentioned the expectations of being the youngest of 6. But at the end of the day, and they always made that clear, like, they wanted me to follow my heart, and that I really appreciated, just they would support me no matter what I did. And they made that clear, even though they definitely had their opinion.
Yeah.
And some, sometimes I think, well, what if I would have been a doctor? I still could have affected change in a different way.
Yeah.
Too. So, it's okay. Like, I don't think there's just one path for people. I feel like there is a chance to really, to tackle issues or, do what you're called to do from a lot of different angles, based on, where you are in life, because things can change, or what you feel your skills are at the time. So I feel like a lot of times young women feel pressured at that and worry that they're going to make a mistake.
Yeah.
But really, there's a lot of paths to arrive where you want to be.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, we've definitely felt that pressure just with college right around the corner and deciding what major we should do and everything like that.
Yeah. I can sense that, and it's at the end of the day, it's I believe it works out the way it should.
Yeah,
definitely. Our other question is, do you have a favorite part of your current job?
That's a good one. I have a few. I definitely love interacting with our Girls Advisory Board members. I do. I just, seeing their excitement, seeing their passion and like their desire to find it and their desire to make a change, that to me is just always like such a great motivator, and they're looking up to you and looking to this organization to really kind of help blaze a path and make certain paths easier, and so I just feel like that's always great. I often call our Girls Advisory Board like the heartbeat of our organization, because awesome. We really look to them and for motivation and also just for guidance in terms of what we need to be doing. Like what are they experiencing? What are you guys experiencing as young women? Like where are the barriers? So what can we do to really eliminate those? So that's definitely a highlight to my work. I really love the fact that our organization in the last few years has been taking a stand more on some of the issues that are really important right now, very critical. And so kind of helping the organization to establish their voice and their role in the community to be an advocate is very exciting to me. I really enjoy that work.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that could look like, talking to legislators. That could look like, mobilizing our grantees and other nonprofits around an issue or helping them to elevate their voice on an issue, that matters to us as well. So, again, one of those things where, in our work, it always changes, and there's just a lot of ways to approach the issue.
That's awesome. And it must be so good for the Girls Advisory Board girls to see what you guys are doing and see how you're in such these relevant issues and make them want to do the same.
Yeah, I mean, we want them to be part, I love that's feels so good when you see them like participate in a panel discussion or we have a discussion with them and then see them to want to turn around and do something about it. Like,
that's awesome.
It is really cool. Like, they're not waiting to grow up. Like, they're doing things now.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Girls Advisory Board?
Sure. So our Girls Advisory Board is a countywide program for high school students, high school girls, ages grades 10 through 12. Okay. And this fall will be our 15th class.
Wow.
And so girls come and one of the biggest objectives is really for them to engage in philanthropy. So, we talk about kind of, like I mentioned, our blueprint. We talked about blueprint, what's kind of going on in their community, but we also ask their input. Like, what are you guys seeing in your schools and in your community? And then they actually are the ones who come up with their priority areas. Oh, wow. So, as a group, what to them is most important that they're seeing. So, for instance, last year they wanted to support organizations that were addressing gender-based violence, that were providing support to single moms, that were offering reproductive health education as well as services. So they were the ones to tell us what was important to them. We invite organizations that are addressing those issues to apply for a grant, and then the girls then are reviewing the proposals. They go on site visits, so they're meeting those organizations and seeing what's going on, and then they make determinations about how the dollars will be funded. So last year they granted out $20,000, and they were completely in the driver's seat about how those dollars were going to be funded.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
especially in high school, that must be so rewarding to be able to do that.
Right, and hopefully empowering as an experience.
Definitely.
That's what I was thinking, like giving girls the power and the decision making to do that just must be so inspiring for them to want to do something like that. To have a job like yours when they grow up.
Yeah, and they have to come to consensus.
Collaboration.
Yeah, exactly. Which I know is big at your school, but a lot of other, girls don't necessarily have that experience with it. And so in the last few years, we've also added more programs or opportunities for the girls in second year of GAB to do things around civic engagement and entrepreneurship. So they're paired with mentors in the community, and we do like a speed networking session for all the GAP girls to meet different female leaders and executives and business owners. Yeah, that's awesome. And with civic engagement, have them be able to interact with civic engagement leaders in the community. So, yeah, it's really an exciting
that's
program.
Such a cool opportunity.
Thanks. Yeah, I know. I can't wait till my daughters get older.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's cool. Trying to think. Oh, the question we like to ask everyone is, if you could give one piece of advice to high school girls today, what would it be?
Well, there's a quote that in my house we have a vision board where my girls kind of put up pictures and things that they like are goals that they have and what they're aspiring to do. And one quote I put on their vision board, and something I remind them, is a quote by St. Catherine of Siena, and it's "Be who God meant you to be, and you will set the world on fire." And
that's an awesome quote.
It is an awesome quote, and I think about it for myself too. It's like when you genuinely follow, your passion and your heart, that's when things will really happen, and that's my advice, I guess, to high school girls. It's like, listen to that voice and don't be afraid to follow it, and listen to that voice and just explore it, and don't shy away and be brave in following it, because I think that's
definitely.
can be risky when you have the pressures
Yeah.
and you have, you know, this idea of what you think you should be in order to be successful. There's a lot of pressure, and I'm always floored by kind of knowing how much you guys balance and all that you do. It's crazy. It's impressive. But so sometimes it can get really crowded in your head and just in your lives. And so to kind of be still and really listen for what your heart is saying and what your passions are. Yeah, and I think things will happen.
Yeah, that's definitely a pressure we've talked about. Just the paycheck. Just like, if I do what I love, will I earn enough money?
Yeah.
Which is definitely too much to think about right now.
No comment on that. Your other interviewees who are in the corporate side may have a different answer than me, but you know, there is, you know, I'll be honest, you know, I'll still be paying student loans from Penn for a long time, but I find it, you know, it was worth it, and it's
and that's what's most important.
Yes,
that you're happy.
Right. Yes. So, you know, other people may not see this, you know, see it the same way, but I think, you know, it's just it's okay, and things work out the way they should.
Yeah,
definitely.
Things work out the way they should.
Yeah, I think that's important for girls to hear, because we have to do internships in
Right.
school, which is awesome for exposure, but I think people think that whatever they do their internship in, that's what they have to be doing in college or out in their career, and it just, we want people to know that that's, you don't have to know.
Right, and you can have so many careers.
Exactly,
You know?
I think that's so important.
Yeah, like, and I feel like that's happening more and more as people just, you know, have so many lives when it comes to their professional path, and that's so cool.
Definitely.
It's really exciting.
Yeah, like even you said, you tried social work and then you switched, which is awesome.
Exactly, and I don't know what's next, and that's it's exciting to think about that, you know, and there's like, you know, if you do need to provide for a family and, you know, just circumstances in your life change, like, you can pivot that. So any decision you're making is not pegging you to being a, you know, poorly paid social worker all your life. Like, there's just opportunities, and you just can reinvent yourself and not be afraid to do that. So, you know, for me, I feel like there's, what I'm fortunate for is to always have had the common thread of my passions, and my work always including my passions. But my work can change different, and so, you know, and being open to that is really important. So
yeah, I feel like right now, at least, I feel like the decision I make, like, that's going to be what I do for my whole life. And it's awesome to hear that you were able to...
Oh, yeah. No, and I'm sure you'll hear that over and over with the other folks. Like, there's just... Life is, like, full of curves and, you know, detours and, like, so much. And you just kind of have to relax and be along for the ride and have a trust in yourself, in, you know, your parents' guidance, of, you know... people who love you and support you, you know, are looking out for you. So it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Did you ever feel like it was hard to stay on that thread of your passion when you were switching careers?
Yeah, I think sometimes, you know, I think for me, maybe the biggest challenge is, like, in terms of being at a crossroads in work, was like, do I work or do I not work, right? Because being a mom, you're often kind of, you might feel like a societal pressure to not work, or vice versa. Yeah. And so I feel like that was probably more of a challenge than like a specific career path is like, for me, I have 5 girls I mentioned, but my last 3 are triplets.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, you know, at the time when we found that out, that was probably a really big, like, struggle for me. Was like,
that must have
but
been
I want to work. It was scary. I mean, in terms of health and everything, thank God, like, everything was fine. But the idea of, well, geez, now we're gonna have 5. Like, daycare may just be too exorbitant. You know, what's this equation here that will make me have to decide whether to work or not. And I credit my husband a lot because he was so supportive, because the idea of having to give up my career or anything, even as much as I love these babies, like, was really scary for me. And he was like, nobody says you have to work, like, don't have to work, like,
Yeah.
if that's your calling, if that's what you want to do, like, we'll make it happen.
That's awesome.
And so I wasn't until he and, you know, others kind of supported that, like, that the societal pressure in my head was feeling more, you know, was kind of diminishing, because otherwise it's like, that was a question I got on the street. Well, you're definitely going to stay home, right, to take care of them, right?
There's
Right?
such an expectation for women
exactly.
to be there.
And I was like, actually, no. You know, like,
Yeah,
take
that's
maternity
awesome.
leave and I'm going to come back.
That must have been so empowering for you too, to be able to make that choice.
Yes, yeah. And I think I wrestled more with that than any type of, you know, crossroad about what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
That's awesome, though. And I'm sure that also another good role model for your daughters to see
Yeah.
that you were able to choose what you felt was most important. Not most important, but what you feel like was passionate for you.
Right. Yeah, I think so. And it's probably something like my own mother, like, there's so many things I feel like I learned from her only now because I get it now as a mom, or just kind of being more removed from you know, childhood. You just see the example that she is, and you know, just what she was instilling in me, you know.
Yeah.
It takes some time to see it sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and definitely what you said with the vision board, that must be so helpful for your daughters. Just
really
to know
cool.
where their goals are and everything. Yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah.
It's quite a range, but it's cute, and it's something, that I think it'll be funny for them to look back on.
Yeah, definitely.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't know what, you know, the aspirations of 3 2-year-olds are, but you know.
That's still fun.
Yeah, I mean, I still think it instills the idea of pursuing
Setting
your
goals.
passions,
Yes.
setting goals.
Yeah, get out of diapers, you know, start
Yeah.
feeding, you know, like, stop using a sippy cup. It's all good. It's true. It's where they're at, you know, or whatever. But it's more their big girls who made their goals, or their big sisters who made their goals for them. But they oblige, you know.
Yeah, it's still fun, and it's good to instill that passion in them. So
Yeah.
Working towards something,
Exactly.
even if it is small.
Yeah,
Exactly.
definitely.
Exactly. It's true.
That's cool. Any other questions? Is there anything else you wanted to add?
No. I'm grateful for this opportunity. I think it's a
thank
lot
you
of
for
fun.
talking to us.
Yeah, thank you.
We really, really appreciate it.
Sure.
We think that people will benefit from hearing your story and how you followed your passions, because we want girls to feel like they can do that. So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank
you.
you.